Hey, all, it's David Ducker coming back at you, and today I'm going to be doing a review of the Song of Ice and Fire role-playing game, Game of Thrones Edition. This is the role-playing game based on George R. R. Martin's historical fantasy series, A Song of Ice and Fire. You might be more familiar with the television program from HBO, which is called Game of Thrones. It confuses some people that the name of the book series and the name of the television series are different. I don't know why they did that. Possibly copyright reasons, or perhaps they just didn't expect it to last second season. I don't know. But this is my review of the role-playing game. This is by Green Ronin Publishing. So let's break it down, go through chapter by chapter. Chapter 1, a Westeros primer. So they walk you through the world of George R. R. Martin's Game of Thrones series. Let's see if I can name all the 7 kingdoms. There is, in the south, there's Dorne. Coming up from there, the Reach. Next to that is the Stormlands. Then we have the Riverlands, which is surrounded by the Westerlands and the Vale of Arryn, also known as the Mountains of the Moon. And north of that is the North. There's also a specific realm for King's Landing, the capital city, and for Dragonstone, which is another kind of city-state, this one being on an island between the Stormlands and King's Landing. Gives you great detail, enough detail to run a full campaign in each of those realms. So you can do a full campaign in Dorne. You can do a full campaign in the Westerlands. You can do a full campaign in the Mountains of the Moon. So huge amount of detail, awesome. It's got great history. If you want to play more of a bard or troubadour style character, there's so much material there for you to work with, or even just a historian or sage, scholar, lore master type. So much to work with. So first chapter, grade A, it tells you everything you need to know. Second chapter moves into your character creation, which again, I'm going to say right off the bat is grade A. First you pick your age. You can be anywhere from, I think, like 8 years old up to 80 years old. The older you are, the more experienced you are, the more experience points you have. Whereas the younger you are, the more destiny points you have. Destiny points are like extra lives. So young people are more likely to survive incidents despite their lack of experience. Old people are very likely to die despite all of their experience. And there are 5 or 7 age categories. I think they go in like 10-year increments. And in the middle, when you hit adult in the prime of your life, in your like 30s, 20s and 30s, maybe 40s even, all those have higher caps. So they can have athletics all the way up to 7, whereas young or old people can only go up to a maximum of 5. You just can't be that strong or that athletic or that intelligent even when you're extremely old or extremely young. It just can't happen. So there's those 3 basic categories, young, old, and adult, and then there's at least 2 other gradings in between each of them. So that's great, wonderful system. In our game that we play, we got 2 guys playing. I think Rick's character is 60, Charles' character is 50, and then Mike's character is 18. I think James is about 25 in game, and Megan's character is about 30. Good range supported there. So it moves you through spending your XP. The categories themselves, the attributes or abilities, are not simulationist style. So to contrast something like Pathfinder, where you have strength, dex, con, you should have agility separate, but you don't. and then intelligence, wisdom, charisma. It's very simulationist. It's very mathematical, whereas the Song of Ice and Fire system is more narrative. So you have athletics and you have agility, which are similar to strength and similar to dexterity. And then you have endurance, which is similar to con, but they're much less rigid. They're very much more broad, open categories. And then you have, other sets like cunning, deception, persuasion, fighting, and marksmanship are, of course, separate because fighting with a sword, fighting with a bow are completely different skills. Pathfinder, I'm looking at you, Pathfinder, where the greatest swordsman in the world is also the greatest archer in the world, for some reason. But Game of Thrones is not like that, fortunately. Now, the categories are very, very broad, as I said. There's a good number of them. I think there's 10 or maybe 15. And you can specialize into each one with bonus dice. And it's a dice pool system. So if my fighting skill is 4, for example, that means I roll 4 dice. And it's all d6s. I roll 4d6. My skill is 4. But I can specialize, and I can buy up to my total ranks in a specialty. So I can buy up to 4 bonus dice of, for example, mace. And that means I roll my 4 for fighting, but I also roll the 4 bonus dice for mace, and I drop the 4 lowest. So it improves your chance of success. It improves what you can do within your total. You can't go over your total just with bonus dice, but you can reach it more easily. And bonus dice are cheaper to buy, much cheaper to buy than increasing your total attribute. Very good system, and it imposes a restriction at the very start where you get so many XP for your totals and then so many XP for bonuses. So you have to have some kind of specialties and bonuses, which is great. So that's the attribute, which is, because of that bonus system, also the skill system. So they're both in one. You don't have to memorize a separate ability versus skill system like you do Pathfinder. So I like that. It's simple. There's nothing wrong with the Pathfinder way of doing it. But I'd say this way is equally good, just different. There's also feats and drawbacks. Although they call the feats benefits, but they're the same kind of feats you'd find in the Pathfinder system. So you have a certain number of destiny points, and you can invest those in buying benefits. And if you take drawbacks, you can get additional destiny points, which you can then invest in buying benefits, which is very cool. So you can put all of your destiny into your benefits and really customize your character well. Or you could not spend any of them and on the fly burn through these destiny points to achieve success that way. So those are two different modes of play. Most people, of course, will blend the two, take the benefits they want, take the drawbacks they want. Rick, for example, took maimed, and he decided that was one-armed. So he only has one arm, but he also took the benefit of being a giant, 7 feet tall. So those two, balance each other out perfectly. One gives him an extra point, and one costs a point to invest. And that's very cool, very, very good system. And there's a lot of benefits and a lot of drawbacks to choose from. Huge options there. The next section, after you make your character, is the house creation. Make your family, your noble house. So first off, you pick your realm, which of the 7 kingdoms and the 2 city-states you're from, or your house is from, rather. And then each house has a stat block as well. Just something like land, power, influence, wealth, And there's a couple others: law, population. And certain areas like the north give you big bonuses on land. You'll have vast tracts of land. Whereas city-state like King's Landing, you're going to have like no land there. But the north will have a big penalty to law because it's so big, and there's wildlings and bandits and pirates and iron men and all kinds of ridiculousness, so you can't police it effectively. Whereas King's Landing is a walled city with a dedicated watch, so you're going to get a huge bonus to law if your house is inside King's Landing. So that is very cool. Actually, for me, I found it very easy to make my own custom realms, because I homebrew everything. So I made my own setting, and it was very easy to make my own custom realms and say, player characters, where do you want your house to be from in this homebrew setting? So once you pick your realm, you roll for each of those stats, you apply your mods, and then you roll for your history. So the older your house is, the more rolls you get for history. And those rolls can be good or bad. Some of them are really good, like you win a great victory, add wealth and land, or plague strikes, and you lose population and law. And there's a very nice array of different outcomes for history as well. I think there's about 20 of them, and they're very flexible and open-ended. There's also, and then you invest your points. Like, for example, your land, you invest that in cities, in rivers, roads, forests, plains, what have you, to describe your domains, your domain. And your power, you invest in your military forces, so you can craft exactly what military force you want. So after you get the points, then you spend them. So to customize your house. And then the last section is a little treatise on heraldry. So you can design your house sigil or shield or coat of arms, which I found very informative. It's a little too detailed for me, but it's better to be too detailed than not detailed enough. So that's good. So now you've made your character, you've made your house. I believe the next section is combat. The combat system is very nice. Each weapon feels different. It's not like swords are better and then axes are okay and then maces suck. It's like swords are better at this, axes are better at that. Neither one's better than the other. They're just different. So you get real flexibility and choice. The armor system is like damage reduction. So it reduces the amount of hit points that you take in damage, which is great. So armored fighting and unarmored fighting is very different. If you're wearing heavy armor, it'll be hard to hurt you. It'll be very easy to hit you because it slows you down to wear heavy armor. And the opposite's true if you're unarmored. They'll have a hard time hitting you. If they do hit you, they will hurt you badly. There's degrees of success. So you roll your fighting, and for every 3 that you exceed their dodge, you multiply your damage just by 1. So a sword does like your athletics plus 1 in damage. So for, let's say that comes out to 6 because you're kind of beefy. So if I exceed his armor class, his dodge statistic by 9, that's 3 degrees of success. So instead of just 6 damage, I've dealt 18 points of damage. 6, 12, 18. That's a lot of damage. Even if he's wearing full plate, that still might kill him, depending on how tough he is. Now it has another subsystem. So when you're getting hit, if it would drop you to 0, you can accept instead of the damage, you can take an injury, which gives you -1 dice on everything. And you can keep taking injuries up to your endurance score is met. Or you can take a wound, which just is like an injury, but it takes longer to heal, but it nullifies more damage. It's a great system, so you can decide if you want to, which is going to be better. Let him defeat you. Defeat doesn't always mean death. He could just capture you. So do you want to be defeated, or do you want to take an injury, or maybe you'll have to take a wound? Now the baseline, the Game of Thrones setting, has no magical healing, so natural healing comes into play, and so do doctors, meisters, healers. They're very important, because you can die trying to heal from an injury. You can get infected and you just die. So it's very important to have someone near you who can actually help you to heal properly if you take an injury or a wound. Now, if you're just defeated and captured, I mean, you might be fine, depending on who's captured you. Or they might just kill you outright. Again, depending on who it is. Or they might cut your hand off, and you have to replace it with a golden hand. So that's this combat system. Very versatile, very flexible, lots of options, well balanced against each other, extremely dynamic. The next section is mass combat. It works very much like personal combat, so there's no real confusing rules to learn, except issuing orders, which is all run through your command attribute. The higher your command, the more orders you can issue. The more orders you give to a single unit, the less likely they are to obey future orders in that round. So I could order one unit of troops to do 10 things, and they'll probably do the first 2. After that, they'll start to grumble. And if I can really grind on them and command them with discipline, I might get them to do all 10 things in a single round. But I'd have to have a very high command score, and they'd have to be fairly disciplined troops to start with. So the mass combat system is great. Again, the commander is so important, which I love. I love that the commander actually matters. You want a strong general at the head of your army, because that's a huge advantage. And there's also subsystems for quality of your troops, and there's several troop types or siege rules as well. Very robust mass combat system. The next chapter is political intrigue. It's like a social combat system. I ignored that chapter completely because my group role plays through this kind of thing. We don't roll dice. I mean, we might roll a single dice. I try to persuade her. I roll persuasion, or I try to deceive him. I rolled deceive. But they've got an intricate social combat thing with various social tactics to use. I find it completely unnecessary. I think most people would, but it is there. It's interesting to look at. The next chapter is GMing, refereeing, storytelling, whatever you want to call it. It's not the best chapter on GMing I've seen in a book. It's acceptable. It's of average quality. I should mention the armor and weapons are all detailed in the combat section, as well as mounts and mounted combat horses are in there. It's probably 4 breeds of war horse, and then another 8 breeds divided between riding and draft horses. If you know anything about horse riding, there's a big difference between those 3 types. The last almost a third of the book is devoted to an extensive adventure path, which it's not bad, it's not great either. It's of acceptable quality. It provides you with some templates. I think that there's about 8 character templates in there. So if you want to pick up a character and roll with it, it's there for you. And if you want to roll through those modular adventures, they are there for you as well. As I said, they're of acceptable quality. They're of average quality. That's pretty much the book. So I would give it overall probably an A- or a B+. If for what it is, for a Game of Thrones product, I'd give it a A+. You can replicate Game of Thrones perfectly with this. For a generic role-playing game, though, that's where I might bump it down to a B, because there's no magic in it. Well, okay, there is a tiny bit of magic. There's warging and green dreams. That's it. There's two different kinds of magic. They're very narrowly focused. So for me, I would love this system with magic as a role player. As a Game of Thrones fan, it's all there. A+, no problem. They even detail the religion very, very heavily. And there is a section in the GM guide on in this book, the GM guide chapter, on green dreams and how to do them. But as a role player, I want more magic. I want holy miracles. I want arcane curses. I want enchanted items. I don't want a lot of these kind of things. I don't want them to be high powered, overpowering like Pathfinder can be, but I want them there for flavor. So without that, I give it the B rating. But I would definitely recommend you check it out. If you're a fan of Game of Thrones, it's a great reference guide. There's so much material for that world. If you are interested in a robust combat system with mass combat, check this out, because the combat system's great, the mass combat system's great. They're virtually the same system as well, so you don't have to learn 1.5 systems to get 2 different modes of play. If you want a game with such a dynamic character building engine, I mean, the benefits and drawbacks, the age versus XP versus Destiny, the caps for adult characters, lets you craft a character that's so different and yet so balanced. You can be old and you're balanced against young, and you're balanced against middle-aged. You can have all the skills balanced against each other as well. So there's so many options, so much flavor. Check it out for that. And the house rules you can use for noble houses perfectly. You could also use that for any organization, for a temple, for a thieves guild, for a wizard's cabal, for a merchant company, a mercenary company. So you can build a character that's dynamic, unique, interesting, well balanced, and you can build an organization that's got all of the same kind of options. So, I'd highly recommend this to anyone. It's fairly rules light, but it's so robust. I could go on all day about how good this system is, how much fun I've had playing it. The only thing that's missing is the magic. So I poured it in magic from another system, so I still have the magic. So I got the best of both worlds. Take that, Miley Cyrus, the best of both worlds. I'm gonna sign off now before I embarrass myself further. But check out the Song of Ice and Fire game. It's truly excellent.